All right, hello everybody, and welcome back to the 306 Fantasy Football Podcast. We're here recording Tuesday evening for our Wednesday, January 17th episode number 113. We have three pretty tired individuals here. For those of you that were unaware, it was a strike day for teachers. All three of us are teachers, so minus 45, we were hoofing it outside. We wearing, I don't know, 19 jackets, whatever you could do to try and stay warm. It was a long day, and me and Zach were just kind of joking that, oh yeah, it was definitely a nap day before we had to fire up the record button today. But we'll say hello to the fellas, and then we'll get things going here. So we'll start with Zach. Zach, strike day. It was chilly. It was real chilly, but we made her through.
Yeah, my my wife and I were joking this morning. We both looked like the baby brother off A Christmas Story, where
Is
all
it
four
Ralph?
limbs are just just totally straight out. We're trying to get into our car. We can't really sit down because we're both wearing like 6 layers plus ski pants and 3 hoodies and two base layers and a jacket.
Yeah, it was unbelievably cold, and I think it was actually colder in Saskatoon than it was in PA, even, which is usually vice versa. But I felt for you guys that was a chilly morning. Armand, we saw each other quite a bit today, but I know you were rather busy as the representative for your building, but it was a big success here in PA, but a chilly day nonetheless.
Yeah, it was a little chilly and brisk, but yeah, I was pretty busy making sure that my staff at the school I'm at was organized to have the second biggest staff to make sure knew everything that was going on in the whole PA and area. So um, I bet the Carleton representative was just a little bit busier than me.
Yeah, one of the
But
biggest schools in Western Canada. Of course, they're busy.
yeah, but you know what? It was good. It was great to see all the support. Saw some students even from my school stop by with hot drinks for the teachers and Timbits and stuff, and that was great to see. It really warms my heart to see that. Kept me warm on such a cold day.
Yeah, it was. I'm not sure what it was like for you guys, Zach, but we did it on 15th, which is like basically the hub of the city. Like almost everybody going down Second Ave. Like Second Ave would be the most busy, and 15th would probably be secondary. But we kind of just lapped around there, and between like the traffic honking and people waving, and we actually had lots of, like, I noticed lots of parents and like just people in the community that were there with signs and saying, we're supporting teachers. Like it was minus 45, man, with the wind. Like it was hella cold. And like those people didn't have to be there. Like strikers, you're mandated to be there. You're supporting for your own staff and your own, obviously negotiations. But like Armin said, there's lots of students there. It was great. Lots of families. And I'm not sure what if it was like in Saskatoon for you guys there, but man, the amount of honking and support was surreal, I would say. But Saskatoon, similar.
Yeah, I think so. Like we had 3 spots to choose from. My wife and I and some friends, we did the Lawson Heights Mall in the north end of the city, and it's a pretty busy mall. And yeah, lots of people driving by, lots of honking. Um I saw, yeah, quite a few like school age kids coming by, whether it was with their families that are teachers, or just, supporting, like you guys mentioned, showing solidarity with their classroom teachers. I'm not sure, but yeah, it was busy. Lots of honking, lots of waving.
That's a good day. I partnered up with a good buddy of mine. We co-manage fantasy football team together. We don't get to see each other as much as now we're not the same school, but we got to talk fantasy football for a handful of hours today. So it was a good day. No complaints for this guy. So we'll get things going here. Top of the episode, you guys. This is going to turn into a Detroit Lions podcast real quick. If this keeps going for the next couple of weeks, no fantasy happening. This is straight Lions talk for 65 minutes. Like we're giving her beans, but I got to tell you, one of the happiest days of my life and one of the most stressful days of my life was that Lions game. And I told you guys, like, that was going to be a bloodbath, and it was going to be nerve-wracking. Like that final drive, I thought I was going to have a heart attack. It was just like the biggest swing of emotion I've ever had. But I had so many people, like I kind of jokingly said I'm gonna turn my phone off because, like, for better or for worse, there's gonna be a lot, and like I got so many texts throughout the game, like, how nervous are you right now kind of text. Like, oh, it was unbelievable. But a couple reflection. I got to throw a couple out here. Some of my favorite memories from this game. I was nervous that Jared Goff was going to be like Matthew Stafford had nothing to lose. He has nothing to prove, nothing to lose. Homecoming, they're not the favorites. Like, nothing to prove Stafford wise. But everything, Goff had everything to prove in this deal. Like, that's why the Rams went out and made this trade. So I was like, maybe he's gonna be a little bit nervous and like we might have a slow start. That first pass, man, I was like quadruple coverage, and he ripped that ball into that target to Reynolds. I was like, oh yeah, he's here to go. If I remember correctly, there was 11 incomplete passes throughout the entire game. I think Goff had 5 and Stafford had 6 incomplete passes. I gotta vet that, but I'm sure Goff was 22 for 27. I'm pretty confident on that stat. The stat for a little bit I'm forgetting a little bit, but that that leads me into our quick question a little bit here because I could talk about this one forever. But so many people, one of my friends, she texted me and she said, so like, was that like the number 3 moment of your life? Like, obviously behind getting married and behind the birth of my son. So yeah, I'd be pretty much up there. But my neighbor across the street, he's a big Lions fan, like big time Lions fan. So right after the game, I'm downstairs. My son's sleeping, so I'm trying to be quiet, and I'm jumping up and down and like fist pumping and like high kicking, like just celebrating, obviously. And I get a text from him, and he goes, "Hey, look outside." So I look outside my basement window, and he's standing right in the middle of the street. And it was like -40, like it was so cold. He's in his jersey, standing right in the middle of the streets. He's like, so like, okay, I gotta go outside and go talk to him for a second. I am like so hyped up. I run outside. I open the door outside. My wife set the alarm without me knowing while I was watching the game. So our false alarm starts going off. I gotta run up the stairs, turn the alarm off, run outside. I'm in my like socks or bare feet, and -40, and we're like high-fiving each other like 2 grown men in the middle of the street till like 11 at night. Just pure joy. And I was like, well, they hadn't won since 92. I was born in 94. I've never experienced a playoff victory in the line. So that was pretty awesome, and gonna keep on that ride. But anyways, we'll get to the quick question. I can talk a little bit more, not in depth of that game, but I can talk a little bit about that. So the question here is, it's leading into it, is what is the best football game you've ever watched? Maybe it's like it's a shootout, or maybe it's like, I don't know. For me, obviously one of them was the Lions Rams game there, but we'll start one with Zach. This one, I was very curious on yours because obviously as a Pats fan, there's been some big moments in Pats history. So I was very curious to see which one you were going to end up picking, but we'll start with you. The very best football game you've ever seen.
Well, when I saw your answer, I saw that you had 3 there, and I was like, oh, do I want to talk about all 3? Uh, I talked about the one like 3 years ago when I first joined you guys, and Edelman retired. Uh, it was the divisional or AFC championship game. I can't remember, against the Ravens. That was a big game. I thought about the Atlanta Super Bowl, having that big comeback, but honestly,
I will never forget that, Zach, watching with you in James's basement. I
yeah,
I was like, this guy is going through it right now at halftime. Like this guy might go home and just turn the TV off. Like I was going through it with you there. I will
yeah.
never
So like
forget that.
that one, like hell of a comeback, but obviously the first like 3 quarters were just awful.
Yeah.
So I went with Super Bowl 49, Seahawks Pats. This was at the time, obviously you're thinking, coming off of 2 losses to the Giants in the previous 2 appearances in the Super Bowl. I was thinking like this is the one that they really need to win. There was still a debate at that time, Manning, Brady, who's the GOAT. And then for that game to go back and forth was super exciting. The Pats pull ahead with like 2 minutes left. And then to see the Seahawks start marching the field. I think it was Curse caught that bizarro catch down the sideline. And I'm thinking, oh boy, this is, Tyree, Manningham all over again, where some fluky catch kind of soils and otherwise great Super Bowl for the Pats. And of course, Butler seals it there in the end zone with seconds left, and that really, I think, kick-started the Pats' second dynasty. So for me, that was a big game. One game that I'm sure I won't soon forget.
Yeah, I remember where I was watching that game too. And we did for kin games, we did like a whatever, you got a square, like you bought a square, and then if your square matched up, you got like your final score was your square, you won all the or 50% of the money or whatever. And if they would have got that touchdown, like if Seattle got that touchdown, I would have won the squares. So I was just like, I mean, Seattle lost the Super Bowl, so like obviously isn't the same reaction. But I was Richard Sherman doing the whole like, oh my God, like what just happened? I would have won like I don't know, like $100, but obviously Richard Sherman lost the Super Bowl. So I mean, same, I guess. But yeah, I remember that one. I remember that one too. It's obviously one of the punchlines of the NFL with Marshawn Lynch and whatnot. But Armin, where was or what I'm trying to say, where, sorry, what is your game that you chose?
Well, I don't have quite the deep history of Super Bowls to pick from for my team. Kind of like you, Jordan. But you know what? Yeah, I could have picked like an exciting game that even like I was invested in, like that one I was invested in a little bit too, right? But for me, the most exciting, biggest moment as a Vikings fan was definitely the Minneapolis Miracle. That was kind of when I started coming into fantasy and watching the NFL and everything, and kind of aging how long I've actually been into the NFL there, because it hasn't been as long as you guys, right? So but that game and coming down to the wire, and then that catch by Stefan Diggs to win the game for them was just like I like pretty much like you were, Jordan, this weekend, like so excited to see Minnesota win a playoff game, and was excited and like just looking forward to the future of the franchise moving forward. And then we've kind of started going the wrong way a little bit, but you know what? We always have the mini miracle.
Yeah, that's football. Zach mentioned there I have three, so I put three down, and like obviously I'm gonna pick this last one, but like I'll put like into words, I guess, where I was at. But I still think one of the best football games all around I've watched, and I think a lot of people could attest to this. With like if you're like not including your bias of your favorite teams or anything, the week 11 of 2018, the Rams versus Chiefs. I had to go back and look some of those stats, and it still baffles me. So it's the third highest scoring game in NFL history. The high scoring was 113 total points. The Redskins absolutely throttled the Giants in 1966, 72-41. Then the number two was 106 total points. The Cincinnati Bengals beat the Browns in 2004, 58-48. And then the number three was the game I was talking about where the Rams beat Kansas City 54-51 for 105 total points. Third highest points ever. And I looked at some of the stats. Jared Goff threw 4 touchdowns for 413 yards. And Patrick Mahomes threw for 6 touchdowns for 478 yards, but he had 3 interceptions in that game. 54-51, like that is astronomical. I still think about that game quite a bit. And unfortunately, I remember I was in my recently like just purchased house in the basement, setting up the basement a little bit, playing around. And I was playing Zach in fantasy, and I got smashed. We shared that story a couple times where he had the golf cup stack, and yeah, I was on the unfortunate receiving end of that one. But so that game was one of my favorites. Stafford winning the Super Bowl is definitely my number two, and for the longest time that was my favorite football game ever. Like when he won, like I always thought like, okay, this is the closest I'm gonna get to the Lions winning the Super Bowl without the Lions winning the Super Bowl was him winning that. And like that was an unreal game, unreal experience. And I was like, okay, this is kind of what this feels like, this, being a part of a big win. But number one was obviously the Lions winning there. That one was like, I remember how like pumped and emotional and excited I was when Stafford won. That was just blown completely out of the water on Sunday. Like I was just like, I all week I was nervous. My wife and I were sitting in front of the TV upstairs after we put our son to bed, and the game's getting ready, and like I was like so nervous, like deep breathing nerves. And then they introduced the game with that Eminem intro, and I was just like, oh my God, like I'm gonna run through a brick wall if this game does not kick off in 5 minutes. Like I was so fired up, but now I'm just, we got we got the monkey off our back, and it was obviously a big one against Stafford and the storylines and everything. Now I'm just along for the ride, just get to enjoy the ride now and see where else things take us. But um, we'll do studs and duds. We'll go through that quickly. We'll go through our picks, and then same as usual, we have our DFS. So I'll start this one off quick with my stud of the week, and then we'll go Zach and Armin. So mine, it's Puka Nacua. I have to give the Rams some credit. That was, like I said, one of the best football games I've ever seen. It's just two polished offenses going toe to toe. Like I said, there was a total of, I think, 11 incompletions throughout the entire game, back and forth. Just an unbelievable football game. And Puka Nacua, if I had a heart attack, it was for sure going to be because of him. I was texting during the game, and at that point, I think the Rams just kicked a field goal, make it 24-23. And I'm thinking, okay, Lions got the ball. If we can burn a little bit of clock, we have to score here, else we're in trouble. 3-and-out. Okay, they punted away, and I'm like, all right, just need a stop. Just need one stop. A short drive or a turnover, or just one stop. Next play, Nacua 61 yards. I'm like, oh my God, it's over. It's over. Like I was just so frustrated because he's so good. 10 targets, 9 receptions, 181 yards, and a touchdown for 33 fantasy points. He broke the rookie receiving record in the regular season, and then he broke the single game record for a rookie for yards in that game as well too. He's a stud. If you drafted him in a keeper league, or you have him in your dynasty league, you found a diamond he was a 5th rounder in the NFL, but you would have got him obviously very late in your keeper leagues, and either maybe off the waiver wire, if not a late pick in dynasty. And yeah, he's going to be a highly drafted commodity in redrafts next year. So Puka Nacua, I know the season's over, but I got to tip my cap to a great offense of the Rams, and obviously Stafford and Puka Nacua were a large portion of taking some years off my life. Zach, let's hear your stud here.
Rashee Rice, he's I guess similar in a sense to Puka, where young receiver coming up real clutch for his team in his postseason debut. Rice had 12 targets, 8 receptions, 130 receiving yards, and a touchdown. And I think this game may signal kind of like the starting spot of what the Chiefs could do in the playoffs. I think all year we've been talking about they're going to get by with Kelsey. They're going to go as far as Kelsey can take them. And then last week we talked about the Chiefs really having to rely on Mahomes on his running ability. But if they can count on Rice to have games, maybe not to this extent, but similar to this, where they can give him double-digit targets and they can count on catch percentage, 60% and above, they might have themselves a weapon that they can count on and take some pressure and some coverage off of Kelsey.
His yards after catch too is he's not the big field stretcher down the field, big plays, but like him and Puka play a very similar game. A lot of catches close to the line of scrimmage, and then they're just gone. Like
Yeah.
gone.
He had 16.25 yards per reception.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Speaking of Mahomes with his legs, do you guys see how wild is that? His helmet absolutely shattered, and then they didn't blow it down. They let him play 2 plays with like a busted up helmet, like the wildest, one of the wildest things I've seen, and one of the more bizarre plays from this wildcard weekend. Armand, your stud of the week.
All right, I had to show some love to a guy who probably wasn't getting a lot of love championship weekend for fantasy football. But he pulls it out when it counts most for his team, and that's Aaron Jones. 21 carries for 118 yards, 3 touchdowns. and 1 catch for 13 for 31.6 fantasy points if you were playing fantasy with him. Absolutely stud week for him. Showed why the Packers need him in order to get rolling here. And honestly, like, this Packers team is a little scary. Like, I know, like, everyone's thinking San Fran for this weekend, but like, there's a little part of me that's like, maybe Green Bay could actually pull it off.
Yeah, I'm right there with in our. I'm not gonna give too much away. In our pick'ems coming up, I typed in Packers, and then I chickened out and changed it. But like, if I could go back and clip it and play it right now, our consensus was like, this is gonna be the most Dallas thing if they lose. But we all talked about like, if there's an upset, this is the game that would be the upset. Like we were like talking that literally, well, 7 days ago, almost to the minute, we were talking about the Packers. It's there's a good chance this happens, and not only did they upset them, man, they embarrassed them. Like that was
Oh,
and a large portion with Aaron Jones, man. He looked good, like vintage Aaron Jones. He looked really good.
You know what? Like, I know he's been injured a lot this season, but kind of gave him the rest, and he's fresh and he's ready to go for the playoffs. Like, he is healthy and he is explosive again.
That would be an absolute bracket buster if that happened. But we were talking about it. Could you imagine if it's the Lions Packers NFC Championship game? Like this,
Oh,
the rivalry that it already is, and the Lions embarrassed them in the first matchup, and then the Packers embarrassed the Lions in the second. So it'd be a little rubber match, and obviously a lot on the line with them with the Super Bowl matchup. That would be a neat one, but it would be a bracket buster nonetheless. I think a lot of
yeah.
people obviously have the 49ers going
I
the
would like
distance.
to see it, though. I would like to see it.
I want the year of the underdogs. Let's get the underdog
Yeah.
story. Let's get a team in there, a Super Bowl championship of teams that have never won the Super Bowl. I think that'd be
Yeah.
unreal. Anyhow, let's get the pick'ems. Last week we not too bad. Arm and I both went 4 for 2. Zach 2 for 4. We still got lots of games left here to balance out this one. In my one bracket, I picked the Green Bay upset, but then I picked Miami to upset that one as well. And then the other one I had the vice versa. So I'm actually doing pretty good in the brackets. But for the last week's pick was a 4 for 2 because I had the Houston upset, which was helpful. Um, we'll start this one off. So we got I'll go through the matchups and then we'll start doing some picks. So in the AFC, we have the number 1 Ravens versus number 4 Houston Texans, number 2 Buffalo, and number 3 KC going on the road. Patrick Mahomes' first ever road game in the playoffs. Then in the NFC, we got San Francisco as the 1 hosting Green Bay as the 7, and then Detroit the 3 hosting Tampa Bay the 6. So we'll start with Baltimore, Houston. Zach, let's go there with you first.
Yeah, I'm surprised that the Texans are in this game. I may have had more confidence to pick against the Ravens had the Browns been in there, but clearly after the showing over the weekend, you wouldn't be picking the Browns regardless if they won. So I am going with the Ravens. This is a rematch of week 1, I believe, where the Ravens and the Texans met up and the Ravens came out atop. I think it was 23-9, if I remember correctly, back in September. Of course, lots have changed since then. Still, though, taking the veteran, the experienced team in Baltimore over the youth and inexperience in Houston.
Armand, are you doubling down there, or are you making a pivot?
Yeah, I'm doubling down on Baltimore there. Houston's an exciting team. They are dangerous. Just showed this weekend they could beat any team in the league, but like I said it from the beginning, and I'm keeping Baltimore as my pick to win the Super Bowl because they're just top down the best team in the league. Like, no other team is as strong as them in all phases of the game. And Houston can't compete with that. They don't have the power on defense or special teams. Offensively, they do have a lot of power, but Baltimore just has that edge that they don't have.
Talking to some Baltimore fans, they're like, "Yeah, we just sometimes, we have a way of blowing things in the playoffs." But Houston, man, grip and rip it. Let's see. I want this to be a shootout slugfest. Like I I did not I picked Houston to win, but I thought that was, a bit of a hot take. I did not expect them to blow Cleveland out, but I am going Baltimore here too. But this is another one of those ones where it's like it has that weird feeling where Houston comes out swinging in the first one. Baltimore coming off the bye week, maybe they come out flat. They play really, really well with the lead. Baltimore, especially like a lot of the games where I've watched Baltimore, have had the lead and they've looked really good. I'd be interested to see if Houston comes out swinging and Baltimore's from behind to see what would happen there. So I'm hoping that one's going to be a bit of a fun one. But I also went Baltimore. I think that's a pretty consensus pick across the board. Next one we got Buffalo versus KC. I ended up going Buffalo here. KC on the road. I know Buffalo started out the season horrifically, and at one point they had a 5% chance of making the playoffs. But they've gone on a streak. They've started to pick things up a little bit. Josh Allen has cleaned up a little bit of the turnovers. He's still not perfect, but he has cleaned it up a little bit. And the offense is looking. I would say is one of the best it's looked all season. This is one where like KC, they just find ways to win. They find ways to win, but I feel like Buffalo being at home, I think that is going to be the difference maker. Two teams that I see very, very similarly. The offenses have taken a bit of a step back this season than they did the season before. But I'm going to use the difference maker of the splitting of the hairs is that Buffalo at home and that atmosphere hosting the Chiefs, I think, is going to be electric, and that's going to be the difference maker there. So I'm taking the Bills. Armand, you got KC or you got the Bills?
I got KC. You can't bet against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid in the playoffs. So there's only one team in this that I'm going in the whole playoffs right now that I'm going to bet against KC for the entirety of the playoffs, and that's Baltimore. So if KC and Baltimore win here, I'm picking Baltimore, but otherwise it's KC pick all the way because I ain't betting against them. Like you said, they find ways to win. And then they got a stellar defense, and Josh Allen is known to make mistakes in the big moments. And I just don't trust him to finish it, and I trust KC to make a big play on defense, and I think that's gonna be what wins them the game is a few big plays on defense, capitalizing on a Josh Allen mistake here and there.
I just want Buffalo because I want a team that's never been in the Super Bowl. Come on, let's just get that going. Speak it into existence.
I'm not
Zach,
saying I don't want it, Jordan, but I'm saying I'm not betting on it.
Zach, split the difference here. We got we need the tiebreaker. Where are you going, Chiefs or Buffalo?
I am siding here with Armand. I'm taking the Chiefs. Very excited for the rematch of the December 10th game, the Kadarius Toney game. Really excited to see how this one shakes out. And we all know, or we should all know that the Bills did win that game 20-17. But I think the big difference between that game and this weekend's game is in that game in December, the Chiefs did not have Isaiah Pacheco, their number one running back. They relied heavily on Clyde's Edward-Helaire, both on the ground and through the air. And I think relying on CEH for anything offensively is probably not what they're going to do this weekend. I can see a heavy dose of Pacheco against a Buffalo Bills rush defense that is very middle of the road. And unfortunately for them, there is a possibility that their starting linebacker may be out after suffering an injury this weekend. So I think there's a pretty good chance that Pacheco does run wild on the Bills. And I think that might be the difference here.
The Bills are, I think they're a 2-point favorite last I looked to. I was looking at the spreads. I think both the number one seat games are 10-point spreads. The Lions are 6. And then if I remember correctly, the Bills are a 2-point spread. Zach, might as well kick this one off here with the Lions and the Buccaneers.
Okay, Lions and Buccaneers. All right. I am taking the Lions here. I credit to the Buccaneers. Great for them that they came out on top, but I really don't see this happening twice in a row for them. I think it was a nice story. I think they did well, but I am definitely taking the Lions here, no doubt about it.
Armand, you with me or you against me? You told me the Lions are like almost the bottom of your list of teams you're cheering for here, so just put some salt in the wound, I guess. But are you in or are you out here? Come on.
Yeah, I made a whole list there for you. Did you read the whole thing? Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think like the I think like you had like the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in front of the Lions too. Like you had a big old list of teams you'd rather cheer for than the Lions, but
how dare you say that I would have the Blue Bombers ahead of the Lions? Don't, that's hearsay, man. That's just, you can't do that to a Rider fan, man. Blue Bombers is bottom of the list, behind even like you go like every sport in the world, every team in the world. The Bombers is bottom of the list. Let's,
Um,
but no, Detroit was near the bottom, but they weren't quite the bottom, were they on my list? No, I had Green Bay as the bottom of my list.
yeah, yeah, you did.
But I'm picking Detroit here. I am with you on this one. Like Zach said, great story, Tampa Bay. But it's over. You capitalized on a team that's in a big slump right now that couldn't get out of it. Detroit is on a rise. They're playing pretty good ball. I wouldn't say necessarily their best ball of the season, but they're not in a slump, and they're not a good enough team to beat any team in the NFL. I think I said Houston could beat any team in the NFL, but on the right day, Tampa Bay, I don't think could beat every team in the NFL on their best day. So Tampa Bay, you're done. Detroit, it is.
Yeah, this one I think is gonna be a routing. Like I don't even see this being even a close ball game. That first half Detroit played, I've never seen a more polished, like unbelievable offense. It was methodical. They didn't have a negative play until like I think it was a minute left in the first half. Everything was like 4 yards, 5 yards, 6 yards, 9 yards of crack on the ground through the air. Like it was a team on a mission. Um, this is going to be a routing. It's not even going to be close. These two teams played in week 6. Keep in mind the Lions were out. David Montgomery got hurt very, very early in that game. Jahmyr Gibbs was not playing in that game. Very much of the Detroit Lions defense was hurt, and they routed them 20-6, shut down the entire Buccaneers offense. Baker threw 206, no touchdowns and 1 interception. Rashad White had 26, led the team with 26 rushing yards. Chris Godwin had 77 yards, Evans 49 yards. They shut them down, and Lions were missing many key pieces to their team. So this is going to be an absolute routing. I would take the Lions minus the points guaranteed, and that is with confidence. Last week was not with confidence. I could tell you that much, but we're gonna wrap this one up here. We got our DFS. Zach smashed us last week. He had the Houston Eagles. Yeah, unfortunately, I got the Houston defense. They put up, was it 3 tutties? So, yeah. Zach rode the tails of Houston, and well, I should just say the coattails of Houston, but your whole lineup did really well. 144 points. That was a huge week. And then Armin and I had a close one. Armin ended up beating me by 2 points. So Zach has 2 points, Armin 1, and I am sitting with 0. So we might as well get Zach to start us off here. He's the leader, so we might as well show us your quarterback first.
Sure. Went with a bit of a value play, or what I consider to be a value play, in Jared Goff. $7,600, which is about $1,000 less than most of the other quarterbacks, and I think this is a really good matchup for Goff. So hopefully he's able to perform at a high level, comparable to what the other more expensive quarterbacks are able to perform.
Yeah, Armin, you finished in second, so you're up. Who's your Q?
All right. I didn't go value quarterback here. I went with Lamar Jackson, $8,700. I figure like I I'm pretty confident Baltimore is going to win this one, but Houston does have a good enough offense that they are going to keep Baltimore pushing the ball and putting up points. So, and not trying to milk the clock as much as we may think. So, Lamar Jackson, I think, is poised for a big week, and even if Baltimore doesn't have a good sizable lead all game long, this game could have the potential to be a shootout too. So, I like those odds.
I jumped in with Zach here. The Buccaneers have one of the worst secondaries in the NFL. The Detroit Lions still have very much one of the worst secondaries, but the Buccaneers are not far behind them. And with seeing how good the offense was, I thought, Jared Goff at 7,600 is a decent little value. So I jumped on board with Jared Goff as well. Thought that was keep cheering for my boys. It worked out last time. I'll do the same. Zach, your running backs.
Sure. I took Pacheco for 7,500 against the Buffalo Bills. Again, like I mentioned, he didn't play in that game last month, and I think with the Bills' injuries, I think the Chiefs may lean on Pacheco a little bit. And I went with White out of Tampa Bay for $6,700 against the Lions. They have a very, very formidable rush defense, allowing the second fewest rushing yards per game. However, their passing defense is not nearly as good, and White does a lot of his damage out of the backfield. So hopefully he's able to capitalize a little bit on that and take advantage of those linebackers in Detroit.
All right, Armand, your running backs.
Hearing Zach talk about Pacheco, it makes me really regret not actually having him in my lineup. I'm convinced now that Pacheco's going to have a great week, and I'm a little scared. Zach here, good salesman. I ended up going Edwards and Rashad White, so matched Zach at least with White. Continuing on that Baltimore train, Edwards is their goal line guy. I'm predicting Baltimore to have a decent number of fantasy points, so I did load up a little bit with Ravens players on this, and there was a few options that were pretty cheap, actually, surprisingly cheap. Edwards at only 6,900, and then White at 6,700, and I know Detroit does have that good front line for stopping the run, but kind of like what Zach was saying, there's some things that can be taken advantage of there, and White might be able to get a little bit of a good game, even though we're predicting Tampa Bay to kind of get rolled. Sometimes you do kind of see that too, though, right? If a team can't get the ball downfield, there's going to be check down after check down after check down to their running back, and White is a good receiver, and it could be his game.
I had Edwards in my lineup actually for a good portion of time, and then I ended up doing a little bit of pivoting because I went with some good little value option for Baltimore, like you mentioned, in other positions. So I ended up pulling Edwards out of there because I didn't want to go too heavy with that offense and spread the wealth a little bit. But I dipped into the well big time. I took Christian McCaffrey, the number one most expensive player. The Green Bay Packers are the worst team, like the worst team against the running back position for points given up. Obviously, McCaffrey can get it done on the ground. He can get it done in the air. He's jack of all trades kind of guy. And I'm expecting this to be a pretty good football game back and forth. So McCaffrey, it's, you know what you're getting. You're spending the money, you know what you're getting there. So I spent 10,800 fab dollars or whatever. So a very, very expensive purchase. So if he has a bad week, like that's gonna sink my ship. And when you're putting that much of your budget into one player. But I also went with Jahmyr Gibbs at 7,300. I thought that was a pretty little value, all things considered, especially because he is the passing back. He was so good. He was so good in that game against the Rams. And they kind of like not phased Montgomery out, but they used him a lot more than I thought they were going to. I had Montgomery in my lineup last week. And he's at 7,000 this week, and then Gibbs at 73. So I'm going with Gibbs here. I feel like they're going to involve him out of the backfield on some swing routes and in the pass game a little bit more. Just he was so good with that this past week, and with, like I said, the Bucs giving up a lot of passing yards. I feel like there's going to be some damage there, and And if I'm going to take a running back too, I kind of want that double dip situation where maybe it's a check down Goff to Gibbs. So instead of, Montgomery just punching it on the one. So I went with Gibbs. Wide receivers, going back to Zach here, completing some stacks.
Yeah, you bet. Took St. Brown. He was my big spend of the week. The Buccaneers have a bottom 6 passing defense. I think that's a really good opportunity for him to get a lot of looks. And then went with Chris Godwin at 6,900, who it looks like all three of us took. We all must have seen that the Lions are a bottom 2 passing defense. And for the Buccaneers to compete, I think they're going to have to move the ball a little bit through the air, and he's a prime target and at a nice price. And then went with Romeo Dobbs, 6,100. Don't love that pick. We saw last week he had a pretty good game compared to what he has been having, and you could throw all the Green Bay Packers receivers' names in a hat, and each week you're going to pull out a different name for who has a big week, and hopefully this is Dobbs' week to have a nice week.
Armin, your turn.
All right, so I'm going to start off with my first receiver because Zach just finished talking about a Green Bay receiver. I went with a different one. I went with Jaden Reed for $6,600. The reason being he was a little bit more consistent throughout the season. They manufactured touches for him, and I figure in this game they're going to be fighting it a little bit. They're going to try and manufacture some touches for their playmakers, try and get a little bit more interesting with their offense than they were last week with Jaden Reed. And then also he was shut down a little bit last week, and then you got to figure like San Fran was watching that game. They're going to be keen in on Dobbs and Wicks because they were wide open against Dallas, and Reed might be a little forgotten all of a sudden just because of one game. It's kind of my hopes here. So manufactured touches and hopefully a forgotten man after 2 other receivers kind of went off, not huge games, but pretty good games against that Dallas defense. The next one I have is Josh Reynolds, again at $6,100. Decided to go for Detroit here and hopefully hit big with a value pick here in Reynolds, and it paid off a little bit last week, so hopefully it'll pay off a little bit again this week. And then my third receiver, I went with Godwin, same as Zach, there for $6,900. It was kind of trying to find a receiver in that value, and Godwin was the one I liked the most, considering the matchup. Like Zach said, they're going to have to be passing it against Detroit. Their defense that's better against the run. So kind of the same theory as White, where I'm hoping he's getting lots of passes. Same as Godwin, they're going to be throwing the ball. They're going to be down. Hopefully he can break off 1 or 2 big ones and score a TD or something for me.
Here, I thought I was being sneaky with the Godwin pick just because of, if it's bad offense, maybe people would go with the Mike Evans pick. But the only way, like the only way Detroit loses that game is if they keep giving up those big, long, over-the-top touchdowns. So they're just going to limit that. I think it's going to be underneath stuff where it's going to have to be a long, drug-out, drive where it's the 6, 7, 8 yard passes and that's kind of where Godwin has flourished over Mike Evans. So I thought that was a bit of a sneaky pick, but apparently we're all on the same page here, taking a good value at 6,900 too. But I also took Josh Reynolds, same as Armand. I wanted to get Amon-Ra in there too, but with taking McCaffrey, there was just no way I could get Amon-Ra and McCaffrey in my lineup. It wasn't possible. And Josh Reynolds looked really, really good that past week. Shy of getting a touchdown, he had a huge, especially huge first half. The whole Lions offense wasn't super great in the second half. They got a little bit more conservative. But I took Josh Reynolds 6,100. I thought that was a really good value for a high octane offense. And then last, for just more or less, it was a value pick because much the same as we talked about the Packers, just kind of throwing all the receivers in the mix and see what comes out. Odell Beckham Jr. Is much of the same as that for the Ravens, and I know he's unlikely the first or maybe not even the second receiving option in that offense. But we've seen him have some big flash games down the stretch here. So a guy that I took there as a flyer, especially with taking a big name like McCaffrey, I got to take some budget plays. And I thought 5,600 for a guy that could be explosive or very well could likely get a long touchdown. All right, well, we might as well throw him in the lineup at 5,600 and hope for the best. Zach, I might just save us some time here. Once again, all of us going the same time. Maybe Zach will just tell us who he went with and a little bit of why, and we could just thumbs up it. But Zach, your tight end.
Yeah, I thought when I entered this name in, kind of like you were saying with Godwin, I thought, boy, I found a real gem. Great price. A good part of that offense. I was really excited. And I guess we were all excited about it. Isaiah likely to be in all of our lineups, I guess. Likely at 5,500, tight end for the Ravens. The Texans are a middle of the road pass defense, and likely has shown that he is a touchdown producer. Since week 13, he has scored a touchdown in every game except for one. And I think he's carving out a nice role in that offense. I will say I do reserve the right to change this, especially if Mark Andrews is active and looks like he's going to play a lot. I did have to do a lot of reading this afternoon to make sure, and it sounds like Andrews isn't going to play this week, so I do feel confident with likely. But if Andrews is activated, that may change my mind a little bit.
Yeah, I thought this was a sneaky play. There's two names that I had in my head that are like, okay, likely was one, but I thought it was going to cost quite a bit more. The other one I had too, maybe I won't say because maybe we all have to switch if something happens, but Oscar, I'll just say I was interested in Dawson Knox. I thought he's going to be dirt cheap. He's a guy that's like a red zone target for Josh Allen's constantly. He's a prop bet king for me. Has been paying out some good money for touchdowns. He's 5,100. So I mean, really, the $400 you're going to save, I'd much rather be rolling with Isaiah Likely on that one. But last we got flexes and our defenses. So Zach, let's go to your flex.
My flex is Devin Singletary. Felt a lot better about him last week than I do this week. However, I do think he is still a nice play at his given price of $6,400. At that price, I think he is somebody that can produce a lot higher than what he's worth. I think he's probably good for a touchdown or some looks. However, he is, going against a pretty stout rush defense against the Baltimore Ravens. So really his only shot at producing big will be if he does get a score, I think.
Armand, big spender here in the old flex position for you.
Yeah, I reached into the well a little bit for this one. I went with Deebo Samuel at $8,300. I like this play because I figure Green Bay's defense isn't going to be able to really stop San Fran from moving the ball too much, and I think it is a good Deebo week. So I'm a big fan.
I went Dobbs, same as for a lot of the reasons Zach talked about, and I know if it maybe point chasing or what, but 6,100 is a pretty decent little value pick when you don't have a lot of funds to splurge. He got a lot of work in the last week, whether or not that's a tale of consistency or not. But I think there's going to be some keys to other parts of the offense, and at that point, like Zach said, you're hoping to hit the right one, and it looks like Zach and I are hoping for a Dobbs week, and Armin's hoping for a Reed week. So we'll see what happens there. Last but not least, we have our DSTs. Zach, we'll listen to yours first because obviously you're the DST whisperer here with the big bucks last week, and so we'll see who you're hunting for in the DST position.
I went with the Bills. They are 4,000. I think they were one of the lower defenses, if I'm not mistaken. Not the lowest, but one of the lower ones. Of course, they are going against the Chiefs, so keep that in mind. But this isn't the Chiefs that we've become accustomed to over the years. They are right in the middle of the pack when it comes to points per game. So hopefully they don't get the doors blown off and they can keep it a low scoring game. Maybe get a turnover or two off Mahomes. That would be real nice. And really just looking for not to get pantsed here on the defense and just keep it respectful.
Armand, your DST.
I went with the Chiefs, kind of similar to why I picked the Chiefs to win against the Bills. Is I figured Josh Allen's going to make some mistakes and the Chiefs will capitalize on it. They were one of the cheaper defenses, and I can see them getting a turnover or two in this game to kind of make it a value pick at how cheap they were as a defense. So
I I almost jumped on the same reason as you. It's like, Josh Allen may throw an interception or two here just because that's kind of what we've become accustomed to this season. But I took the Bills to win, so I'm hoping he doesn't turn the ball over a ton. So I went the same as Zach. I went with the Bills. They're one of the top defenses for against the passing offenses. So I'm very curious to see what's going to happen here with cold weather game with KC on the road. We've already seen them play a cold weather game, but we have not seen them play on the road in the playoffs before. So, hoping to prepare anything can happen. But quick recap there, Zach. Let's from top to bottom, let's hear your team.
All right. I went with Goff, Pacheco, White, St. Brown, Godwin, Dobbs, Likely, Singletary, and the Bills.
Armin, top to bottom.
I went Jackson QB, Edwards and White RB, Reed, Reynolds, and Godwin receivers, Likely at tight end, flexes Deebo Samuel, and Chiefs defense.
Yeah, my team quarterback is Jared Goff. My running backs Christian McCaffrey and Jahmyr Gibbs. My wide receivers are Josh Reynolds, Odell Beckham Jr., and Chris Godwin. I have Isaiah Likely as my tight end, Romeo Dobbs as my flex, and the Buffalo Bills as my DST. That's going to pretty much wrap it up here for us. But before we conclude this episode, a quick shout out to where we're at with the charity bracket challenge with 5 teams tied at 5 points. The top teams in that order. I'm not in any specific order. I have 2 brackets in there. One is dead. It's got the Rams. Like I took one bracket with the Rams and I took one bracket with the Lions. So I have 2 brackets that have 5 points. One will fall off the cliff quick and one hopefully will stay at the top. We also have another top team we have as well is Matt Roberts. He is tied with 5 points. Darcy Bear, 5 points. And then my dad, Colin Kerr, also has 5 points. Lots of teams with 4 points, lots of teams at 3, a few teams at 2. So the bracket challenge is live and well, going great. And then just another reminder too about our Super Bowl watch party at the Rock Trout Events Center. That's going to be a full go February 11th. We got great prizes already coming in for that. So book your day there. Make sure you got them marked in the calendar, and hopefully we'll see you for a great football game. But I can guarantee you there'll be great prizes and food and drinks and good company as well too. So that's pretty much going to do it here for our episode number 113. Thank you very much everybody for listening. Take care, talk soon, and go Lions.